place to do art. I do a lot of art. The main art I do is a very, very large performance art called Chalk Talk, and it takes a lot of space. Back in 1996, when we bought the property, this barn was just full of junk. At that time, I was giving art classes in my basement in the house, and it was a very dingy basement, and it was not at all adequate. And so I was really needing a better space. And one morning, I had this habit of taking prayer walks up the back field lane. And as I turned around and came back through the fields, the corner of the barn came into view. And in that instant, the idea came to have a studio in the barn. And I had never thought about it up to that point. And I came right in here and I began to visualize. I began, those big windows weren't at all in here. So I thought, we could put in big windows, clean out the dirt and da-da-da. I looked out the little teeny tiny window that was there and I saw the barnyard and I says to myself, and I would call it Barnyard Art Studio. Well, as far back as I can remember, as a student in the one-room Amish Mennonite school, I hated arithmetic. I disliked anything that had to do with using my mind, and I enjoyed nature very much. I used to take long walks in nature. I was always inspired by the beauty of my dad's farm and the creek that flowed through the farm, and I'd wander the fields and the flowers and the birds, and just so attuned to my surroundings, and I wanted to draw what I saw. When I was 5 years old, I'd draw pictures of the farm, very, very primitive, and all I had was my mother's line tablet. Her writing tablet had lines. The lines were very annoying, so I would sketch the picture on there, tear it off, sketch another one, and I'd save it in the bottom drawer of her sewing machine cabinet. That's my earliest memory of enjoying drawing. Then in school, I had an 8th grade teacher who noticed that I liked to doodle and draw, and she encouraged me to learn how to paint, which I think is interesting because in my background, art was considered frivolous. It was not encouraged. I really had no point of reference at all. I didn't know other artists. And so when I went home, I finished school in the 8th grade. I went home and helped Dad on the farm, and in my spare time, I began to teach myself how to paint. And I read a piece of advice that I copied on a piece of paper and stuck it on my wall in my bedroom. It said it takes 3 things to be a good artist. Number 1 is practice, number 2 is practice, and number 3 is practice. So I made a commitment to practice painting every day. And I noticed very quickly, even on those days when I didn't feel like painting, I painted, I started, and once I get started, I get inspired, and soon I was enjoying myself. So I painted most every day, and I was 14 years old, and I was real fortunate to have a local art and craft dealer discover my work, and he began to sell my things for me on the weekend at art and craft shows. There was a pizza shop down the road, used to be a art supply store, and I noticed when I was 16 years old, and I got a driver's license, I noticed they were offering classes in painting with pastels, and I had never heard about that, and I was curious, so I signed up. I had 3 lessons, and then my mom and dad said, "You must stop, it's too expensive." But those 3 classes gave me the basic foundation that I needed to learn how to paint with pastels. So that's what I do a lot with kids now in the art classes. Plus, that provided me the foundation for the chalk art that I do in the performance art. After leaving the Plain community when I was 18 years old, I was excommunicated, experienced the shunning and so forth. And that's another whole story that I have in my autobiography. My husband and I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. He began his flight training, and we also attended Bible college, and it was there that I discovered what is my absolute favorite art, which is the Chalk Talks. I found an old book written in the early 1900s called Chalk Talk Made Easy. I didn't know anything about this art. It was a performance art, and I started using the things that I had learned in the pastel class and combining them with the things that I learned in the old book. Plus, I combined it with the things that I was learning from Bob Ross on TV. I had discovered TV for the first time, and I learned a lot about composition, perspective, and color. And I began to use that in the performance art that I was learning. And to make a long story short, years later, I began to realize that I had unconsciously combined these techniques, and it grew into what it is today. And 30 years later, I'm still doing Chalk Talks all over the United States and beyond. I do them on cruise ships, I do them at Amish schools, and anything else in between. What do I love most about running the studio? I get to meet a lot of other art people interested in art, and so it's a place where I connect with those people, because I really truly believe for every piece of paint or art that you paint, there is somebody who wants it, right? And the trick is for us artists is to connect, with the people who want your art. And so this is where that happens. And for me, it's with the tourists that come to visit. But with the art classes happen behind that art rack right there. And so there, I just get to talk art with students of all skill levels. We have beginners, we have intermediate, we have advanced students who just want to come and hang out and paint with me. And that's just a lot of fun. Because I discovered early on, that's how I grow art-wise, is to share it with others. And there's just a special blessing. There's just a need met in your own life when you give it your time and you share your ideas and art inspiration. It just all comes right back to me in more, ideas and more art inspiration. So yeah, that's where it happens. That's how it happens here. What does a typical week of work at the Barnyard Art Studio look like? Well, I teach classes seasonally because the tour buses come seasonally. They overlap a little bit. So I'm just going to give you a week of maybe the spring when the winter classes are just ending and the tour buses started to come, right? So it can be very, very busy. On a Monday morning after farm chores, I come out here, get ready for a class, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have about 5 groups of homeschool children coming throughout the day. And then maybe the next day, Tuesday, I'll have a tour bus coming. And as soon as I finish with the tour bus here, I entertain in the theater in there with the Chalk Talk performance. And I might turn right around and go into Amish Experience and go into theater there in Ronks, which is about 30 minutes from here. And I might have the evening off, or I might have another engagement somewhere at a church program or a community service club or something. Occasionally I have a day off. I get to sort of regroup and refresh, and I'm always in the process of restocking things here, always looking for items to resell and so forth and so on. But the next day I might have 1, 2, 3, or as many as 5 buses in one day during the height of the tour season, which of course the popular time is spring and fall. But then I have field trips. Schools come here and we do hands-on art. I set up art stations all throughout the art room, and they go from station to station, experience various kinds of art. So that's big. Since COVID, that kind of has become quite popular. So I'm often having field trips when buses aren't coming. And then there's people like you who show up that want an interview, or I'm working on a book, or now it's a film. So it's a busy place. And I'm thankful for that. Yeah, so the services that I provide here at the art studio, number one, and probably most of all, is the entertainment for the tour visits, which consists of bus groups from all over the United States or local people who are looking for some entertainment. And families come here, clubs, ladies, whatever, you name it, come here to have experience the Chalk Talk performance. And then the field trips I mentioned. I do the field trips for the schools. We offer the hands-on classes. And then the private lessons. Occasionally I'll have visitors come from out of state, and I want some time with an artist here in Lancaster County. Group classes. We have group classes or private lessons. And occasionally someone will want an art-themed birthday party. And so they'll celebrate their 16-year-old daughter or son's birthday here, and I might do a Chalk Talk for them. They'll bring the refreshments, I provide the tables, and then they will do some art. We'll do some art together. So the step-by-step instructions, or the kind of the entertaining centers with the hands-on art, and they all get to take something home, like they get to take a painted rock home and a watercolor bookmark or whatever. We have the art shows. Yes, we have the art and craft show every year, which is a pretty big event, always the 3rd Saturday in November. And I have other artists and crafters coming in here. And I always offer free Chalk Talks. I always write a Christmas Chalk Talk that's new for the year, and I get to show it to the public for the first time during the art and craft show. And we have other fun things going on that day. We have food, and we have, model antique car rides, whatever. This year we have a potter's wheel in another part of the barn, making pottery and various other things. So that is also probably one of the main big events that happens here every year, is the art and craft show.